Hi everyone, I'm Clare Coatman. I'm a senior campaigner at the TUC and I lead our programme to reach younger workers. Welcome to this second webinar around reaching younger workers, but no worries if you missed the first one. This is about a different topic, but you can also catch up that one on our YouTube channel. So there are two ways for you to participate in the webinar today, and please do join in. This isn't just me speaking to myself. You can look below the video stream and you'll see a link for questions. If you've got questions at any point throughout the whole webinar, please do submit them and I'll do my best to answer as many as possible at the end. I know I've already had a few come in, which is fantastic. And there's also a chat area to the right of your screen. Do say hello, catch up with the other participants, but it's really helpful if you've got questions, if they go into the question area, not the chat box. So thanks for that. So to dive straight in, we all know, I think, as a movement that we've got a problem right now in reaching younger workers, but that is despite a lot of fantastic work going on right across the movement. Whether it's the Bakers Union supporting the McStrikers, Unite helping the guys in TGI Fridays, or GMB supporting Uber drivers. There's a lot of brilliant campaigning going on. And as the TUC, we realised that there was a role for us in adding something to all of our toolboxes when it comes to reaching younger workers. So we started with a year of research because by definition, young workers in the private sector are a group who we're not currently in touch with. And so we knew that when coming up with a new offer that was going to appeal to them specifically, we were going to have to reach out, have a chat to them directly, learn about the context of their lives, what are the problems that they're facing, and really crucially, what are the barriers that stand between them and collective organising. So we did some desk research, as you'd expect. We found out about relevant policy, about the demographics and attitudes that were already known about within this group. Really interestingly, we engaged over WhatsApp with a set of younger workers. And this really typifies the approach that we've taken, which is to go to where younger workers are, not expecting them to come to us. It's really important that we make engaging with unions as easy and as smooth as possible for younger workers. And WhatsApp was a really great tool for us to use because a lot of young workers using that on a daily basis anyway, so they're also comfortable with it as well as being familiar with it. The information that we got back from that engagement formed the basis of 100 interviews that took place right around the UK with younger workers. And those face-to-face interviews were where we learned the most and our best information from young workers themselves. And I'll come on to those findings in a moment. We also ran workshops with young workers and we ran online panels to kind of verify that what we'd heard was accurate. We wanted to check that what we thought we'd learn wasn't a kind of skewed result just based on who we'd happened to speak to. And of course, we engaged with all of the fantastic expertise that is there right across the movement. I ran a series of workshops and it was fantastic to have staff from around 20 affiliates join. We also took advantage of the really fantastic knowledge from general secretaries, and so we conducted interviews with a few of the most relevant ones. So what we found out from all of that research was quite a stark picture, if I'm honest. There were 4 really significant barriers that stand between younger workers and collective organising of any form, let alone becoming trade union members. The first thing we learned was that younger workers feel quite far from unions right now, and I'm sure that won't come as a surprise to a lot of you. They feel like we're for other people, in particular because we're targeting workers in the private sector. They felt like unions are more associated in the public sector, and they were unsure that in the private sector there were even unions that they were eligible to join. They also feel like unions are for older workers rather than younger workers, and really interestingly that we're for people in their careers rather than their jobs. So a few people we spoke to loved the idea of a trade union. They said, that's fantastic, I would love to get involved, but I'm not going to be working in this bar forever. Maybe when I'm in my career, then I would get involved and invest in making my workplace better. But for now, it didn't seem worth it to them. Sadly, a lot of younger workers were unaware of even what trade unions were at all. When we asked them in interview to give us a definition, probably the majority couldn't. They asked, "What's that? I haven't heard of a trade union." Quite a few of them had some kind of latent knowledge. If we pushed them and asked them to have a guess, they could quite hesitantly come out with a really good definition. Some of them said, "Oh, I'm really not sure, but is it maybe something like they know your rights and they've got your back at work?" There are then issues around young workers' precarious work becoming a barrier in itself to unionising. And again, I think this won't come as a surprise to a lot of you that unionism can often be seen as quite risky. In particular for these less confident younger workers, they said that they feared their boss knowing that they joined a union and then not getting given the shifts that they wanted anymore, or that it might make it harder for them to get their next job. The second barrier that we found was around low expectations in the workplace. The way that younger workers are being treated is often all they've ever known at work, and so they don't know to expect any better. The third barrier is sadly low levels of trust between the group. And again, this is a direct result of the precarious working environment that they're in. When we asked them how they'd feel about chatting to a colleague to see if their issue was shared, the most common response was, "I could never do that, they'd be straight behind my back to the boss and then I'll get in trouble." And the fourth barrier that we heard was one of futility. That a lot of these younger workers have tried to change things by themselves at work, but because it's been by themselves, it's not worked. And so the feeling is, why would I put my neck on the line if it's never going to get better anyway? Now, as I said, all of that paints quite a stark picture for us. Some things that we heard that were a little bit more positive were needs that this group have. And it was more positive because a lot of the needs that we heard were things that unions are perfectly placed to help with. Things like knowing for sure if how you're being treated is wrong or right. A lot of younger workers just feel very uncertain and so don't want to challenge behaviour until they have that confidence that they're in the right. We also heard that younger workers really want to feel like they're getting ahead at work, that they're going on, progressing and doing well. And a lot of their employers aren't supporting them with their ambitions. They're not offering them training opportunities or routes to progression. So with quite a complex picture and a complex set of challenges, we know now there's going to be no silver bullet. We know we're not going to find a quick, cheap and easy solution to all of this mess. But what I think is really great is that as a movement, I feel like we're up for the challenge and we're up for responding in a way that is equally complex and nuanced and coming up with a solution that will match the scale of the problem. There are several reports that go into much more extensive detail into the research findings, and if you're interested, just let us know in the questions area and we can pop the links to those reports in. I've just kind of given a very top line level summary of that. So having found out all of this, we then knew that we would need an idea that was inherently appealing to younger workers, so would be meeting one of those needs that we'd identified, but that would also lower those barriers to collective organising so that we could take younger workers on a journey from where they currently are nearer to us. We knew that we needed to raise their expectations in the workplace, to build levels of trust between the group, and also to give them a sense of hope. We had an early question sent in around how you get younger workers to join a union, specifically when they're working just a couple of days a week and maybe they haven't heard of unions. And as you've heard from the research findings, that's quite a typical situation for a young worker who are trying to reach to be in. And that's exactly the idea that we're working with, which is basically our theory now is we need to go to where younger workers are rather than expecting them to come to us. to start a relationship with this group that are currently quite far from us, and to do that by offering something that they really need. So we began a process around coming up with what idea could meet that criteria. We ran workshops with affiliates, staff from different unions, and we ran more workshops with younger workers themselves, and we came up with hundreds of ideas. We whittled them down, we tested them until we had just one left on the table. And that idea is around helping workers feel like they're getting ahead, helping them with their job progression. We heard time and again that if you're at school or college or university, younger workers felt like they had access to a career service. And if they're unemployed, they can go to the job centre. But they feel like when they're in employment, there's no one there to help them get ahead at work, whether that's working towards a promotion, specialising in a particular area, or gaining skills so they can move into a different sector in the future. So as you can see from this slightly convoluted flowchart, this job progression offer that we're now testing, that we've called WorkSmart, will work by firstly grabbing the attention of young workers by offering something that they really want. We'll keep them sticking around with us because we're going to make them feel like they're getting value from WorkSmart and we're engaging them. The way in which we deliver WorkSmart is going to help raise awareness of problems at work, and we're also going to start to identify early leaders. There's then going to come a point where we feel like their barriers to organising have been lowered sufficiently that we've kind of warmed them up to unions and we can transition them into union membership. The idea that we're working with is currently called WorkSmart Extra, and the idea is that it will be like a digital branch of a union. So younger workers who we've been in contact through this route will become members, but they'll stay engaging with us online for a good amount of time. And there we'll be identifying and supporting possible workplace leaders, helping them organise together and get to grips with campaigning. So a bit more detail about what WorkSmart really is. It's a digital offer first and foremost, but we're also investigating how to support that with one-to-one engagement. Whether for their learning, younger workers might need phone support or to be able to chat with a careers advisor, for example. We know that ultimately this is going to be about helping younger workers get on in life and at work. And some early topics that we've heard younger workers would like us to cover are how to build better relationships in the workplace, knowing their rights at work, how to progress at work, and how to engage with learning and skills. And this is really interesting around the learning, that what we heard from younger workers isn't that they can't find opportunities to learn online. It's almost that there's too many. They feel overwhelmed by all the choice out there, and they find it hard to navigate what's worth their time and possibly their money. And so that's an area that we're going to be developing over the rest of the summer, how to support them making the next steps in their skills development. We've also identified a set of principles to guide how we develop WorkSmart moving forward. And all of this comes from research we've done about how you support people to change their behaviour and from what we've heard from younger workers themselves. So we know that everything we come up with is going to have to be bite-sized. A lot of these workers have only got 5 minutes on the bus on the way into work. They're leading really busy lives. We need to fit in around their schedules. A third of young workers are also young parents with even more pressures on their time. We also know we need to make it fun and social to help keep people engaged and to keep it action-oriented. That for this group whose confidence might be a bit lower, we need to help them feel like they're making concrete steps each day towards their goals. And all of this will walk young workers slowly towards union membership. In this instance, this space on the website, WorkSmart Extra. So WorkSmart Extra, or digital branches, is the bit of the programme which is still under construction to the highest degree. We need to co-design this with unions, and we're going to find young workers who we're not currently reaching, warm them up, as I've talked through with WorkSmart, segment them off so that we know where the kind of clumps are by industry or employer, and then invite them to join the union through WorkSmart Extra. And this idea of a kind of walled garden of a digital branch inside traditional unions to offer younger workers more of a tailored experience that's going to really meet their specific needs. So this is what WorkSmart looks like. You can see the URL there at the top, so you can go visit it, have a look around at your leisure. Every word and image on that website that you can see has been tested with younger workers. And that's been a really important feature of this whole programme, that every decision that we've made hasn't just been our gut instinct. It's always been from testing and from what the evidence is telling us. We're still in the pilot phase, so for now the link is just for you to look at rather than, it's not quite ready to be promoted because the pilot can't run at significant scale. But we'll let you know next year as soon as it is ready to be promoted and used to help recruit younger workers. So we are now in the pilot phase. We launched the pilot with the TUC's 150th anniversary at the start of June. We signed up 1,000 young workers ready for the launch. And as we're in this pilot phase, it's still a lot about what we can learn from how people are engaging with the site, rather than going to volume or to scale too quickly. So that 1,000 young workers is more than enough for us to learn what we need to over the coming months. We're piloting the digital branch element in particular with just a few of the TUC's affiliated unions. We're already partnering up with Unite, GMB, CWU and Prospect, and we're talking with USDOR. And those unions were approached based on the sectors that they cover, because we're targeting these younger workers in the private sector. We made that decision because around 9 in 10 young workers on low to average wages work in the private sector, but barely more than 6% of them are in trade unions. So this is really the group that are least in touch with us right now. There are barely any reps even in their workplaces to ask if they want to join a trade union. We've involved the wider movement in the development of WorkSmart so far, and it's been really fantastic to see all the lessons that we've learned applying right across the public and the private sectors. So there's something in there for everyone. The pilot is very much still about proving the concept. I don't know if this is going to work yet. It's one very big experiment, and I think that's really exciting. We've given ourselves the best possible chance of it working, as I said, by basing every decision on evidence and really listening to younger workers themselves. But only time will tell whether this will succeed. So I'm sure that's quite enough from me. I'd really welcome any questions you have about WorkSmart or in reaching younger workers in general.
So yes, Claire, we've had quite a few questions come in. So I'll tell you what they are and see if you can answer them. If we don't get to every question that we've had, we'll try and answer them afterwards on the chat function. So we'll just see how many we get through. So first question from Donna. Many young people are in jobs which they do not see as long-term careers. As a result, they don't see the benefit of joining a union when they're unlikely to remain at the workplace. Do you have any suggestions to overcome this objection?
Great question. So I think this really chimes with everything that I've just been talking about, everything that we heard from younger workers themselves. I think you're exactly right, Donna. So one day down the line, you'll be able to offer them WorkSmart and engage with them that way. For now, I think it's about trying to make everything we're saying to younger workers in the workplace really relevant to them, but making sure that we're not making assumptions. So the issues that are particularly felt by younger workers are the issues really felt by all workers: low pay, precarity, and lack of voice in the workplace. And as I mentioned, for a third of younger workers who are working mums and dads, issues around parental leave or what happens if your childcare lets you down on the day are going to be felt really keenly. So I think having honest conversations with younger workers around the issues that are affecting them right now, how unions can help them with that, and just gently encouraging them to see the value in improving their situation right now rather than waiting until they're in this possibly kind of mythical future job. Maybe talking to them around the impact that the difficult circumstances at work is having on their lives, and seeing if not being able to spend enough time with their kids, for example, maybe that's a really good driver to make a change now.
We've had quite a few questions about the use of digital tools, so I'll just give you one of them for now. What digital services should we be looking to employ to engage with or recruit young people?
So definitely a lot of younger workers are on Instagram, they're on Facebook, Snapchat, but it's really important when using those tools to make sure that they are the appropriate mechanism. I think it's really important that we're all thinking and working strategically. And so you're quite right to think that younger workers maybe are on different platforms than older workers and go for them. And I know that Riz Hussain will be presenting a webinar later this year who will be speaking to the kind of broader topic around digital and social media.
So yes, definitely sign up for that webinar when we advertise it later this year. Maybe this is linked to a previous question, but how can we convince younger workers that paying union fees is an investment? The question that the asker, Rebecca, says for her, union fees are a luxury, but one that she wished she'd had during the past 12 months because of a problem at work.
Sorry to hear you've been having issues, Rebecca. Definitely, union fees are something that came up during interview when we were speaking with younger workers about them. I think for a lot of them, they feel a little out of reach, especially for those on the lower wages. And I think that that's something that we need to be thinking about as a movement more generally. I know that a lot of unions have got really great approaches around sliding scales depending on income, or even some kind of free trial offers to begin with. And I think we need to explore all of those ideas a lot more. That's something that WorkSmart is definitely going to be using. We're going to take a model very similar to Spotify. There'll probably be a free version of WorkSmart and a paid for version, and then a kind of premium version that all singing, all dancing, that will be a bit more expensive. And we're hoping that having the free and the premium version will encourage people to go for the kind of middle road where they are paying a small amount every month to get access to more content. I think in terms of how we persuade younger workers to see it as an investment, I think sharing your personal experience can be one of the most powerful tools with that. And so wherever you feel comfortable to, I think speaking about where having that union membership as backup has been really useful for you, or as you shared, Rebecca, how you wish you'd had it.
Another great question from Nicole. Are you worried that by the time all the research is complete, it will be too late for those young workers, and the issues of the next generation of young workers will be completely different, especially with Brexit and the ever-changing economy?
Great question, Nicole. So the simple answer is we're not going to stop testing. For 18 months now, we've been meeting young workers face-to-face in interview, engaging with them in those online panels and WhatsApp. But since we started developing WorkSmart as an idea, we've not stopped speaking with younger workers. Almost every week, we have a small group come into the TUC offices, or the team were out in Liverpool this week, and we show them where we've got to. We show them a kind of paper printout of our next idea that we've not created yet to get their feedback. And it's really reassuring that week on week, we're hearing the ongoing need for this kind of platform, for this kind of support. And also that all of the language that we're using is resonating, that the images we're choosing are the images that this group are finding appealing. I also think there's definitely something that I find a bit personally uncomfortable about how long the whole programme is taking, and compared to the urgency of the problem and just how difficult young workers are finding life right now. But I think it's worth it to go a bit more slowly, to be able to go carefully, and to make sure that we arrive at the right result, and that what we're offering is going to be the most effective thing possible. There's a concept that I've been learning about as I've learned more about user testing, which is a new area to me, and innovation as a concept, which is about failing faster, which can sound kind of funny to begin with, but it's this idea that every week in the project team, we're coming up with new ideas, and then we're showing it to younger workers at the end of that week, as I said, just on paper, and we're getting their response. And so at that level, if we hear back from younger workers, actually, that's not what I need, or that's not going to work for me for this reason or that reason, we can scrap that idea right then and there, or completely transform it into something else. And on one level, we've failed quite quickly, but on another level, I think all of us have experienced times in our work or in our trade union activism when maybe we could have done with failing a bit sooner. Maybe sometimes we've written a new guide or explainer about an issue and printed them all and sent them out to people and had them read them, only to find out that the way we've phrased something doesn't quite make sense to people. And so that publication isn't going to do the job it needed, but we found that out quite late down the line. And so this approach of constant testing and constant iterating, I'm finding really valuable and gives me a lot of faith that we're going to arrive at a good place with it when we're able to launch it at scale.
So I think one last question from Russell. How can we best look to communicate and raise the awareness and relevance of younger workers so they can make an informed choice and become advocates?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question again, Russell. I think it's almost also, it speaks to the kind of the complexity of the problem that we've got, that not only do we need to be recruiting younger workers as trade union members, we also need to be getting them to be activists, getting them to understand the political context that we're in. One of the most terrifying stats that sits with me at the minute is in about the next 10 years, we're going to lose about half of our workplace reps to their well-deserved retirement, which is kind of terrifying if we think about how much it's going to take to get younger workers ready to take over those really crucial positions. I've not got any easy answers. Definitely identifying younger leaders is a really important part of the programme that I'm running. And I would say in workplaces and branches all around the country, it's a really great thing for people to have at their front of their mind. Whenever there's an opportunity to help skill up the younger members, to help show them how things work in your branches, or to help them support them in taking the lead in a campaign, then that's a fantastic investment in the future of the movement, as well as the future of that young person. So I think that's it for today. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm sure I'll be back later in the year to share more of our findings, and do join others in this series of webinars.